we'll get into that. Okay, so Nick and Taylor, I feel like we've been through so much over, it's been 8 years or 7 years?
Yeah, I think it was 2014, 2015 when we originally met in Next Space, so it's been a few
No, I
days.
think I met you before then.
Maybe 2015?
Yeah, let's go for that one. I'm gonna ask Nick, okay, so take us back to the beginning, before Taylor happened, before Frank happened. It all kind of started with you, right, Nick?
I guess you could say that. How much time do we have?
Yeah.
But really, yeah, it's a long story. I started home brewing in 2008 with my dad after I moved home from college from Chico, home of Sierra Nevada. My dad used to homebrew in the 70s in Chico also, so he actually had a lot of his old equipment. So I started brewing in the kitchen with him, just became obsessed. Things started accumulating. A few years later, I went through beer school and then tried to open my own brewery. My original partner, Ali, passed away kind of 6 months into planning, so things got put on the back burner. And then a couple years later, I approached Taylor and Frank, the third partner, and asked them if they wanted to start a brewery. And we started meeting every week at a coffee shop in Scotts Valley for about a year, trying to figure out how the hell to do it. And I think that's kind of when we met with you and started doing some stuff at some of the events Santa Cruz's, and found our spot on the west side, opened the doors in 2017? Yeah.
Okay, so was it true? And I heard from a family member tonight that you graduated from Chico, what was it, the school?
Chico State.
Chico State, and like, but it was your major was what around beer? Or is it? I thought there was some beer element. No?
I drank a lot of beer.
You drank a lot of, okay, no, because that was it. Okay, so anyway, from Chico, okay, I got the story wrong, but now I'm thinking it right. It's that drink. You actually got another job though, a good paying job right after that, right, in San Francisco?
Yeah, I worked in construction management for a few years.
But what did you tell your dad after that? That all you wanted to do was?
Open a brewery, I guess.
Yeah, that's all you wanted to do was beer. That's right. God, so you had a great paying job. God, you had a good job, but all you wanted to do was make beer, and it wasn't like a guarantee that you guys were going to be successful. You know, most small businesses fail. So that must have been pretty stressful to like go from something that like I can bank on to not bank on.
It's still extremely stressful.
It is. It's just a different stressful, yeah. Okay, so Taylor, when he like approached you, like how did you get involved in all this?
Yeah, so Nick and I have actually known each other for a good amount of time. I'm really good friends with his younger brother, and so we've all been closely connected over the years. I think Nick's main focus and passion really sort of encompasses like making beer, and that's really what he wanted to focus on, was like, how do I be like the best brewer I possibly can do, or best brewer I can possibly be? How can I make the best product? And newsflash, like if you want to open a business, typically like the business encompasses a bunch of other things. So if Nick were to open a brewery, he'd likely be spending a lot of his time bookkeeping, would be spending a lot of his time managing people, sort of the things out of his scope that he didn't want to really focus on. You know, Nick's passion is in craft and beer, and that's where Nick should spend a lot of his time. And since then, he's been able to craft some amazing recipes. So many. I think like 275 last year. Little side note, got the best beer in California last year, so that was like a nice little feather in the cap, and it was one of Nick's favorite recipes, so it's been pretty exciting to see. So Frank and I came into the project to really to take the things off of Nick's plates, and Nick could focus on making beer, and collectively as a team we could really focus on creating the best business we possibly could. Just sort of a company that could really support each other and just be well-rounded.
So you manage, he makes the beer, and Frank just makes it look pretty.
Frank does a great job making it look pretty. Doodles.
A lot of squiggles.
Okay, so what was what was the challenge between from having the brewery in your grandma's carport to actually having like 3 locations now? What do you feel some of the big challenges you've had to face? There's many, I know, but what are some of the ones?
I'm sure it's going to be a little different from a production standpoint and then also from an operational standpoint. So I'm sure Nick's story and my story might be a little bit different, but I mean, probably like the number one thing from my perspective has just been fundraising over the years. Like we started this project with just a couple $1,000 between us, kind of pulled it together. We started making beer out of Nick's grandma-in-law's property in Ben Lomond, just at 30 gallons at a time, and started hosting events together with Matthew and event Santa Cruz, began doing events at other bars and restaurants around town, wholesaling, and the entire time we were just like bleeding so much capital and just like losing money. And we're like, yeah, this is fun, right? Like, people really like drinking. And we did that for about 3 years, slowly raised a little bit of money from our friends and family, enough to get us into a space over on the west side of Santa Cruz. Shortly afterwards, we ran out of money. We went to a bank and did like the ultimate pitch we possibly could, got turned down from every single bank, and we sat around like a coffee table and we're like, yeah, you know, we should really sort of reconsider our budget. And so we went through and crossed items off the list that we didn't need in our budget, or just like cut them in half. And that was like sort of like an ongoing joke we had, like not only that day, but like every single time money gets tight after that, we're like, yeah, we'll just get rid of it, or just cut it in half. Went to the bank and ended up getting a loan. Shortly after that loan, we ran out of money because all those things we crossed off or we cut in half, we actually needed to do, and it actually cost money. And so like just over time, like that's ultimately been one of the most challenging things, is just getting really low on cash. How are we gonna make this whole thing work? And then, you know, from one reason or another, we're able to sort of like pull it together and make it work.
So there's always been challenges. There's been huge challenges in the past to get to the point where you are now. What are some of the highlights? I'll get from both of you. What's the last few years, the highlights since 2014 till now?
I think for me, some of the highlights are being able to kind of travel. I mean, less the last couple of years. I mean, starting now, but and getting to meet all these people in the industry that are sharing the same passion that you are, and getting to see how they do it, learning from them, getting invited to cool festivals and recognized kind of all over the country for your beer has been pretty cool.
We need to collaborate a lot. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, probably one of my highlights was watching Nick meet one of his idols at a beer festival from Firestone Walker, who's one of the owners of Firestone Walker. And just seeing Nick and him have like a little interaction and like share a beer and like talk about it for a second, and I think that was pretty cool.
Do you have pictures and video?
Yeah, they're out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are the ones we can show, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what's next for Humble Sea? We're pretty on the spot. Totally. Yeah. So, so Felton just opened.
Yeah.
Right, which is amazing because that is like your hometown.
Yeah.
That is like such close to it. That is the valley. Now it's like I can imagine one of like just an accomplishment, and it's such a cool thing to actually have a brewery that's so close to home, or tap room. But what is next?
Yeah, it's a good question. Nick today was actually at the new brewing facility, which is over right next to Goodles, over off River Street. And I think right now the attention is really focusing on that space, dialing in that space and starting to produce more beer out of there. Ever since we've opened, we've been sort of supply constrained. So we've never been able to really meet demand. Have always been, a little bit behind the curve. And so I think this will be the one time since we started where we can produce enough beer and be able to sell that beer to the accounts that we want to sell and feel good about it.
Yeah. I remember there was a couple times where, early on, where it's like, okay, can you do this one event? It's like, we just don't have enough beer. Too many people are buying it. So great problem.
Yeah, make it 5 gallons at a time,
Yeah,
so.
exactly, yeah. Okay, so we didn't talk about this. We talked about it, so I'll get back to you in 10 minutes. Do you have any fun stories? You don't have to have if you don't have one.
Yeah, probably one of my favorite stories was like when we were signing up for our bank loan, putting down collateral, and on my list of collateral included like an old bicycle and surfboards and my iPhone 10 or whatever it was. And the banker looked at it and he was like, yeah, none of this shit counts.
I think that's a good way to end off the night. Thank you very much, guys. Humble Brewery, thank you.